Part 2 of my take on the European Individual Women's Championship deals with all those lowlights, all those, quite frankly, horrible bits of the events, you know, the ones you didn't really enjoy playing or reliving. But anyhow, I relived them just for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So moving on to the lowlights, let's go back to round 5, where I faced off on top board against Skaya Alina. She became the eventual champion, so it wasn't such a big thing that I lost to her. So first of all, some people might think I'm a little bit too critical of myself, but it's quite handy to find out where you went wrong. I played the Reti. Now the Reti is a very subtle opening, and the reasoning behind my Reti, my opening choice, was that Alina is married to Radek Wojciech, second of Anand, 2700. So I wanted to avoid her preparation as much as I possibly could. And I thought, she's a very direct player. She likes to push pawns, she likes pawn breaks. Let's take her into a subtle maneuvering game. However, that also had an effect on me, because I also like direct chess, I also like my pawn breaks, and I was being forced by my own making to play a position that was very subtle, I would say very intelligent. And yes, I did feel like I was learning on the board. So the first point is on move 14, when we've reached the position that perhaps we both had prepared. She's just played rook f8, and I put my king on h2. Black has easy development, and white's whole basis of play is this bishop on h5 is out of the game. And the aim is to reroute the pieces, maneuver the pieces into better squares, and all the while claiming that this bishop is on h5 is out of play. So if white does this, white has a very nice natural position. If white doesn't do this, then white will simply be lumbered with a bad bishop on d2, a queen on e1. What is the queen doing on e1? And a rook on a1 that doesn't connect with its sibling on f1. Those are kind of the short-term problems. So bishop g6, and now I think I played something a little bit too hasty. I went bishop c3. I did consider going f4, but I thought, no, can't really do that. And one of the things I had noticed in my earlier play was I loved pushing pawns. I pushed pawns unnecessarily. So I was a little bit wary of doing that in this tournament as well. So I should perhaps, if I wanted to be very subtle about this, I should just go f3, overprotect on e4, reinforcing that the bishop on g6 is locked out, and start maneuvering my way in. Instead I played bishop c3, and of course she went bishop d4, and I probably should just take that bishop, be done with it, capture the knight, the bishop on g6, pawn takes g6, and then just play queen e2, and then just get on with chess. I should have just done that. Instead I went pawn f3, but I start to become a little bit lost. It's not easy for me to concoct a plan. I really would love to move this rook on f1, to magically transport it to d2, and just get it into the game. The other rook to a to d1, and yeah, but I couldn't find a way to untangle b3, and I was very, very worried that she might go b5. And in fact, b5 is probably a very good move. But she didn't play it, so she allowed me knight takes g6, h is g6, and I lapsed into bad habits and played h4. I couldn't help myself, and when stuck for a plan, I thought, well, just push the pawn on h4. Bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, knight d4, rook d3, and I started feeling a little bit more comfortable about my position, because if I'm allowed, I will go rook f to d1, and then maneuver again and kick this knight from d4. b5. Now this move is a very clever decoy move. I considered it, but then the move still came as a complete surprise to me. Queen takes a5 perhaps is inaccurate. Queen e7, and Queen e7, and now she's threatening to go. She has all sorts of things in the air. So she has knight takes g3. That's one sacrifice. She also has g5, which will be very, very unpleasant because my pieces are all out there enjoying the happy life on the queen side. So I hit upon this plan of rook takes g4, which I know my opponent seemed a little bit shocked by, but it works. What I need to do is I need to basically consolidate as much as possible. So after d3, c takes d3, rook takes d3, what I need to do is I need to forget about my knight being active or my bishop being active. I should simply play rook f2 and do safety first this way. Like this, then the rook is never going to come to d2, and my bishop on g2 is never going to be vulnerable. Okay, black is better, there's no denying that, but black has to work very, very hard to get something concrete. You know, I do still have ideas of knight b6 to knight d5 in the future. I was in time trouble and I just collapsed. I mean, it's just not anything pretty to watch, actually. So knight b6. Oh, I've allowed her rook onto the second rank. No. Back again, because the rook shouldn't be on the second rank. And she, of course, maintains that she's in the second rank. e5, and the other rook comes to d8. And I wanted to play knight d6, but that doesn't work. Too late, I saw that knight f4 is probably very strong there. So I played queen b6, but look, the rook comes to d3, and look at these beautiful rooks. It's just a matter of time now before my position will fall apart. Queen b8, king h6, and now I try a cheap shot. Knight d6. This is just it's so cheeky, it doesn't work. And of course, she sees that queen takes e5 makes things unnecessarily harder because of queen h8, king takes, knight takes f7 check, and I can live for a few more moments. Of course, she saw that it was too easy. Knight d6, and then of course knight takes g3, and yeah, queen takes it, and that was a complete collapse. So this is from game 8. I was playing black against Turkan Mamajara, and I have to start off by saying that I chose the Queen's Gambit Declined mainly on the back of watching some videos made by Matthew Sadler and Natasha Reagan, and one of the videos that really caught my eye was how Alpha Zero handled the Queen's Gambit Declined as black. And I loved the concept of how it handled the minority attack by creating an outside rook pawn. So I thought, wow, let's try and get that. And I also really was fascinated by its kingside attacks of going h5, h4. So I was inspired. I was hoping to recreate that in my games.
So after a lot of fun and games, we reached the following position on move 40. My opponent has just played queen h8, and I respond in turn with king goes g6, and we'll take up the action from here.
King g6, and I thought that's it. That is it. b3 will come, b2, b1, queen. The game is won for me. After I got up from the board to take a break, just to relax and rest and and think about what was going to come, it suddenly dawned on me, well, what happens if she plays h4? And when I came back to the board, sure enough, h4 has been played. h4 is actually a fantastic defensive resource. The idea is that if you were to go g takes h4, white has knight e2, followed by knight f4 check, and the queen and knight are working rather dangerously together. Not full control as I thought I had. Funny enough, the computer gives this position as perhaps slightly better for black, but that's just on the basis that white has a knight and black has a rook. So I decided, in true kind of style, I kind of thought, well, let's simplify matters. So I decided to play the easiest way, rook c1, king h2, g takes h4, and rook f1. knight f4, and I thought, well, I have my pawns e4 and b4, beautiful passed pawns, each of them 3 squares away from queening. My king is free to wander. Her queen has got no good checks. Again. So move 45, I thought, that's it. I am cruising in for the victory. My pawns will queen. Remember, it's not the quantity, it's the quality of the pawns. And yeah, but my opponent hit me with some fantastic defense. d5. Didn't come as a surprise. I was just kind of hoping that she wouldn't see it and that she would be fixated on the material. But you know, she's playing very well. Queen takes d5, queen e8, king f5, king h8, king e6, queen takes h6, queen b6. And now I probably make my first big error after queen b6. This move to create maximum problems for her is, ironically, to put my queen further away from my king. And the reason why this works is because the king now has the freedom to run. So for instance, after a5, e3, queen b7, my king can start running, hiding behind the b3 pawn. And after queen b3, that's it, the king comes to c5, and now it's the e pawn that will run. And so probably this will be, it's tricky, but definitely the winning try. So instead, it's very instructive actually how the queen should be kept further away from the king. But somehow I had it in my head that queen came to e6, and I could support the pawn by e3, e2, e1. But my opponent really finds a great way how to force the draw, and that's just by playing queen b6, 7 check, king d6, a5, e3, a6, e2, and now queen b4 check. And my king just cannot run anywhere. And we finally come to my last game, and probably what can only be termed as a nightmare. I did not sleep well. We're going to join the action on move, where are we going to join it? We're going to join the action on move, hang on, I'm going to join it on move, we're going to join the action on move 42. And so I've been pressing all game, and I've been slowly extracting more and more benefits from the position. So I had, it was a very level position, but I had the bishop pair, and suddenly I'm in an endgame, and now I have a better pawn structure. I have a wonderful pawn on c6, so I've extracted a whole load of things. So yeah, I've extracted a whole few advantages, and the big mistake here was that I was not focusing on a technique that you use in endgames, which is actually mentioned in Jonathan Hawking's excellent book, Amateur to IM, which is thinking beyond the horizon. And it seems so easy when you see it done in retrospect, but it's perhaps not so easy to think about these things when you are actually playing chess.
And I'm just using forward chess on my Android phone, so I'm just going to click into it. And as you can see, the interface is slightly different, but I know my book, Amateur to IM, is stored in my folders. I have categorized folders, and I'm just going to hit that button that says All, and I'll scroll down, and I know where it is. It's located in Chess Improvement. And I'm just going to click into Amateur IM. And the thinking technique that I was referring to is actually called reaching the horizon, which talks about using reference points in calculation. And this really helps with the idea of planning and ending. So I'm just going to go into chapter 2. So I'm going to swipe right. I've swiped a little bit too far. So swipe right. And this is basically tells you how to identify the long-term goals of both sides. And it's all about calculating with a goal in mind, and this really translates into things that you should be doing. For instance, promoting pawns and attacking the enemy structure. And now my favorite example actually is very early on, is in fact this game between Setelin against Finkel. And just by knowing certain things in this ending, you can actually know what you should be doing. For instance, you notice that the black has got a dark squared bishop, and the color of the square on h1 is light squared. So this means that black should not be trading rooks. So we're kind of looking beyond things there. And it then becomes very clear that it's actually going to be very, very difficult to win the f2 pawn. So therefore, what's going to happen eventually is that black must sacrifice the bishop for the f2 pawn. And you also look, can you create a passed pawn? Well, no, black can't create a passed pawn. So it's very tricky. So if we fast scroll down, we can actually click into the board, and there we can actually play out the example. Bishop takes f2, rook takes f2, king e3. Fantastic little move there. And black has a winning king and pawn ending. So nice example there. So if I were to click back, so I'm going to hit the back button, and the other book that I was referring to as being very good, so I'm going to head back into the all folder, and there I can see it is the correct exchange in the ending. And the very first, again, the very nice first example is this book. I'm just going to click the diagram, and so you can see the nice example. After queen h6, it becomes very obvious that white shouldn't be swapping off queen. So white plays queen h4, and black simply waits. And then it's a nice thing about knowing what is a draw, what isn't a draw. So white plays king g1, and black gets a bit excited and takes an h4. G takes h4, and thinking, well, I'm going to create a passed pawn, I'm going to win the h4 pawn. But after g3, king h5, king h1, it's in for a rude awakening, as this is a theoretical draw. So both these books refer to thinking techniques that aren't just move based, but at looking beyond and knowing what you should do. So let's see if we can apply those principles to my game.
So here, if I had thought beyond the horizon, I would have seen that my pawn is holding that knight on c7. That's a fantastic thing. I also have the potential for a passed pawn via f4, g5. And the only thing that I have to think about is that she can create a passed pawn with a5, a4. So if I use those kind of concepts that I can create a passed pawn, I would know that certain exchanges would be good for me. And the first exchange would be that I play bishop d2. And bishop d2 more or less forces either the rook to go to a8, or a little bit more natural, the bishop to go to b4. And after bishop b4, bishop takes b4, a takes b4. So I've killed any counterplay with this a5, a4 pawn break. And now what I have to factor in is, again, thinking beyond the horizon. It's not about calculation. This is just about thinking beyond and think about the creation of passed pawns and what pieces are good and what pieces are bad. So remember, this knight on c7, not very good, because it's held back by the pawn on c6 and the bishop on d3, which is attacking the b5 pawn. And remember that creation of the kingside passed pawn? Well, this means that you can now play rook h2. And why can you play rook h2? Because after rook takes h2, king takes h2, king e7, I simply can walk and create, let's just say she plays this, a takes, f6, king takes, and now I can simply create a passed pawn with f4, and my king will penetrate the position sooner or later. There's no calculation required. What is needed is vision. Or to move 57, just actually 56, and my opponent just played knight d5, which is a losing move. It's a losing move because after bishop takes d5, e takes d5, I can play rook d2, and I was hoping she would play king f7, and then I would simply go rook f2, and king goes to e8, and then rook takes rook, and I have a winning king and pawn ending. She didn't play that. I was thinking that in the head. Please, 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 make it easy for me and play king f7. No, she didn't play it. She played rook b8 instead, which again should be pretty straightforward. Rook takes d4, rook takes b3, rook takes d5, and now she tries a hand at rook b1. And here I played rook takes a5. Interestingly enough, after king f7 I wanted to play rook a7, and king e6 I wanted to play rook a6, and king takes e5, rook 8, king h5, and that's it. Lucina position has been achieved with king goes to g6, and the pawn will simply march its way forward. I can't explain why I didn't do it. I just have no explanation other than perhaps we were playing with time pressure and I had perhaps entered the terror zone where I was not thinking clearly. I was not making the right choices and perhaps playing too safely. The best chance for black is after king e6, rook a6, is actually not to take the pawn, it is to come back to king f7. But again, the win is very straightforward with e6, king goes to g6, and then just go e7, e6 check. This is, funnily enough, it's not the e pawn that you want to preserve, it is the g pawn. But funnily enough, for some reason, whatever, I didn't play rook a7 check as I wanted to play. It was like maybe some kind of mouth slip, but I played rook a6. And interesting enough, this position is now a draw. And it's a draw because after all the checks, let's fast forward. And it's actually really instructive. So I'm sure somewhere along the line there's going to be a karma where I'm going to save the position using this technique. So rook d1, king c7. I thought this was going to be a win. King goes to e7, excellent move. And after g6, there's only one way how to draw. And I will see if you can spot it, because it's not necessarily that human. I'll pause, give you a chance to pause the camera, to pause the computer, and you can pause the recording, and now you can begin again. So the correct move is rook to d7 check, and after king c6, king e6 draws the game. Instead, my opponent played rook g1, which is actually losing, and once again I wanted to play the winning move, but the hand played something else. I lost my mind and I played rook c6, and the winning move of course is rook d6, because after rook g5 I can simply play g7, and she does not have time to pick up the e5 pawn, and my king now wanders back into the action, and the g pawn will queen. Instead I played rook c6, and rook g5 draws on the spot. So there is no point in crying over spilt milk. You know, with every problem you must find a solution, and so I am setting myself a challenge. I have 3 challenges to do over the coming months. First one, I have set myself the task of reading a book. Now I will be chosen to read Dynamic Decision Making by Boris Gelfand. And one thing that I do, it's perhaps common for other people to do, is I very often start a book, love the book, love it, and then I don't finish it for whatever reason. I just don't finish it, and I begin another book, love that book, read a few chapters, absolutely adore it, rave about it, don't finish the book, move on to another book. And instead I'm going to try and kill that bad habit. I'm going to complete this book, Dynamic Decision Making in Chess. I'm hoping that you will also join along on my hashtag Dynamic Chess Challenge. And the next thing I have been challenged to do, I was challenged on Twitter to actually read the book Oleg Pervikov's Industrial Studies on Chess. Now I've started already, I'm on study 10, and I can tell you it is fiendish, incredibly enjoyable, and the rules are you do 3 puzzles every 1.5 hours, and you're allowed to board, you're allowed to move the pieces on the board, and you just have to note whatever you find, and then you check the solution. And often I can assure you the solutions make you laugh. So please join along. And the third challenge I have is actually about my blitz. So every time I played under time pressure, what happened? I lost my mind and I went into a terror zone and I just played the first move. I didn't make the correct decisions. So what I'm going to do there is, and I'm going to try something a little bit unusual, is I have gathered a squad of people to help me. And what we're going to do is we are going to find complicated positions, have 2 minutes to think, and then train ourselves as a la buzzer chess. Every 30 seconds the buzzer will go and we will make a move. We'll see how it goes. And but if you want to join along this challenge, please hit the comments and tell me whether you're in or not. And remember the hashtag, and please tweet me using the hashtag #DynamicChessChallenge. And let's see if we can improve our game for those summer tournaments. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and see you in the next one.